Hello, this is Mark Smith with Family Tree Counseling Associates, and this is my weekly video. My topic this week is when her abandonment issues go against his shame, it equals a nightmarish shitstorm. I know, I probably shouldn't cuss during my videos, but sometimes there's just no other way to say it. So let me define my terms. By abandonment issues, let me give you some examples of that. And by no means am I saying that women have more abandonment issues than men do, just for the purpose of this example in this video and in my blog this week. I had the wife have the abandonment issues and the husband have shame. Sometimes they both have both, and that's wicked. So let me give you some examples. If your wife or your girlfriend or your fiance has some abandonment issues, it would be her becoming irrationally, overly reactive, and overly jealous and critical and controlling of you in any of the following scenarios and scenarios like them. Let's say you went to high school with a gal, you haven't thought about her for 25 years. She was attractive then, she's still attractive, and lo and behold, your wife finds that you have a new Facebook friend. All you did was she requested to be friends, you checked that little box, that's all you've done. You haven't thought about this woman in 25 years. And then God forbid she messages you and says, hey, how you doing? You haven't done a thing. But if your wife has abandonment issues, she's going to go batshit crazy over that. And that's going to be a big deal, and there's going to be a big ugly fight. There's going to be a lot of drama. Let's say you're half an hour late coming home. You went out for drinks with coworkers. And everybody went. It's Friday night. It's no big deal. It's having beers with coworkers. You're not doing anything wrong, but a couple of the coworkers are both hot and female. And you're half an hour late, so you're going to get in a fight. It's going to be ugly. It could be that a trigger that triggered her abandonment issues is she texted you and you were in a meeting, and 5 hours later, you still haven't texted back because you forgot. That could stir up some trouble. If she invites you to do something and you decline for whatever reason, hey, let's go to the movies. Nah, I'm tired. I want to stay home. She could feel abandoned by that. Or if she becomes to develop an unpersuadable perspective that you're just not nearly making her a high enough priority on a day-to-day basis. In all these cases, if she has abandonment issues, there's going to be drama, there's going to be conflict, there's going to be tears, there's going to be curse words. So when I talk about abandonment issues, it's rooted in your childhood, but that's not really what I'm talking about here. I'm talking about day-to-day living with your wife and how that affects her and how that affects you. It's the impression of any real or imagined abandonment. You don't even have to abandon her, she just has to have the impression that you did, or distanced yourself from her. Real or perceived distancing. So, ladies, by shame, what I mean, in the case, let's say your husband has shame, what that is him being way too sensitive and ouchy to any and all feedback coming from you about anything, no matter how nice you say it, no matter how right you are. You could be 100% right, say it pretty sweetly. He got shame button, going to hit it, and he's going to get, crotchety. So here's some examples of that. Let's say he goes and works out, and he comes home and you're shoveling the driveway. Our driveway needs shoveled today. I'm not going to do it though. So he starts raging at you, and you think you're doing him a solid. You think you're doing him a favor because it is his job, and you're doing it. But his inner shame, there's a negative voice that starts yelling at him that he should have done it. He feels bad, and then he exports that negative voice onto you and starts yelling at you because he feels guilty. Here's another example. Let's say you very pleasantly ask him, honey, could you, before you put the dishes on the side in the other sink, could you rinse them off? And don't leave them in the left-hand side, put them in the right-hand side. And he could make some nasty comment because he didn't hear, honey, can you rinse the dishes? He heard, you friggin' idiot, put the darn dishes where I tell you to. That's what he heard. So another would be, let's say you make some observation, not meanly, but let's say his family's just a little bit nuts, and you make some observations, say, about his parents, and I mean they're acting nuts, and you just say it, and he gets a little reactive, a little edgy, a little dark about that. Let's say that he approaches you for intimacy, and you got to tell him, dude, I'm not quite as attracted to you because we don't talk enough, and if we talked more, I would be inclined to make love more, but you're not much of a talker. And he could take that as not only that could hit some abandonment, but it could also hit he's not good enough. And that's basically what shame is not feeling good enough. So when one, if you think of this as a heavyweight fight, when one person in the couple, well, one combatant, if you will, has really strong abandonment issues, and the other one weighs in with massive shame, then the shitstorm possibilities are off the charts. It's like having a fight with gasoline and fire. Both parties have a gasoline can and a lighter. It's not a pretty thing. If you want to really have some ugliness, throw some alcohol in the equation. So they're both drunk on alcohol. One of them's drunk on shame. The other one's drunk on abandonment. Pretty soon the police are going to be called, I'm telling you what. So with these dynamics, a perfectly connected evening, romantic, you're going to get laid here in a little bit, and you're feeling pretty good about that. Beautiful night. It can turn ugly, boom, into a knockdown, drag out, ugly rage fest that lasts for a week. Just this quick. So an example of that would be, let's say you get just a little bit sideways, the wife does, about how her husband was extra nice to that cute waitress with all that cleavage. And she puts a little edge on her words, a little sarcasm about that because she's hurt because her abandonment issues have been tweaked. And then that edge hits his shame, and there's a little bitty spark, and both of them are splashing those gasoline cans around, and boom. Things get explosive in 0.6 seconds, and once they go sideways, things get ruined. And my brother, you are not getting laid tonight. You're sleeping on the couch. And it happened over nothing because you didn't really care about the waitress. You really weren't looking at her cleavage. You thought she was cute, but you were thinking about your wife, but she thought you were thinking about the waitress, and instead of you diffusing it, you threw gasoline on a fire because you got defensive. So that's a scenario, and if you're that couple, you know exactly what I'm talking about. You're like, how'd that man know about my marriage? So you're probably going to want some how-tos. There are no how-tos. You're going to ask for some tools. There are no tools. You're going to ask for tips. Can't give you any tips. You got to get in recovery because it's really not even a marital problem. the problem is that in your wife's case, that she was abandoned in her childhood, and she picked you on purpose because she sensed that you would really suck at meeting her needs. That's exactly why she picked you, so you would abandon her. So she grew up, and let's say her dad was an alcoholic, and maybe her mom had a favorite among one of the other siblings, or, God forbid, a parent died early. Probably the worst scenario is a parent committed suicide when a child was very young. Or maybe dad had an affair and he was still in town, but he moved away and he started another family and didn't really see all that much. So then this gal who was abandoned by her dad starts to date. And who does she date from age 16 till the time you marry her when she's 25? A bunch of knuckleheads who cheat on her and don't give her the time of day and abandon her. Maybe there was even a marriage in there where somebody cheated. So by the time she gets to you, she was deeply abandoned by one or both parents and by 4 or 5 other fellas. And you just have to feint like you're moving in the wrong direction, and you're going to trigger some abandonment issues. So I'm going to read a little quote here. At her core, there's a ravenously needy and sad little girl who somehow, this is funny, somehow got the erroneous impression that all of her emotional wounds could be made so much better by your very impressive emotional depth, by your hunger for long conversations, by your unlimited empathy, your thoughtful unselfishness, and your amazing sensitivity. She thought you were the healing balm, that you were the bomb, that you were going to make her happy this time. You were the one. The problem, of course, being that in all reality, after the initial enmeshment or the honeymoon phase wore off, you actually possess exactly none of all those romantic and loving qualities that she previously was projecting onto you and now bitterly holds you accountable for. She thought you had all these skills. You ain't got them. You know, you are what you are. You are what your mom and daddy raised you to be. So, in the case of a fellow with shame, the real problem isn't the marriage. The problem is he grew up with a harsh, critical, controlling, or abusive parent. At least one of his parents was harsh, critical, controlling, or abusive. And, or maybe both of them were. And the message was, you're not good enough. Just as you are, you're not good enough. You have to do this, this, and this, and guess what? You're still not good enough. So when you critique him, you know, like this much, and he flies into a rage, you're like, dude, I only said that, you know, you needed a breath mint. Relax. I really wasn't attacking you. I was trying to help you, you know. So that's where the rage and the overreaction comes from. He doesn't hear what you're saying. He hears what you say amplified 50 times by the voice of his old school Marine father or his perfectionistic, emasculating mother. So he doesn't actually hear what you said. Now, if your abandonment issues are triggered and you put just a little bit of ugly on that comment, he's going to hear it like this, and then you guys are throwing gas at each other. That's the problem. It usually gets started with some kind of abandonment feeling and just a little bit of abandonment reactivity and sarcasm, and as soon as it hits his shame, it's almost like you can't even help it. It's like one of those little rubber mallets that the doctor hits your knee with and the knee pops up. If you put a little ugly on what you say, he's going to get defensive every time if he's got shame. So what's the answer? The answer is to get in recovery, and getting in recovery is really understanding your issues and understanding the issues of your spouse, and not being defensive, being teachable, having lots of pain, but understanding that there are no victims. And somebody has flipped on the light switch, and you understand who you are and where you came from and how you got to be that way. You know what your issues are, you know what your wife's issues are. So recovery is re-engineering your personalities from the ground up by healing your childhood wounds. So how do you do that? You do that by sitting in front of a therapist who's been doing the same process that I'm talking about for many years and continues to do so. You don't need a real super degreed therapist. A master's level therapist will do just fine. You just need somebody who's done a lot of therapy and who understands abandonment and shame and the fact that there are no victims in marriage, and who's courageous enough to get that communicated to even, fairly defensive people. You really could benefit from a solid therapy group that sort of fits what I've been describing. They understand shame, they understand abandonment, they understand codependency. Therapy groups are wonderful, they're inexpensive, they're fun, they're supportive, and you'll gain so much from them. Reading a lot of good books on recovery will do wonders for your recovery process. And listen, you got to cry a lot of tears. There's no avoiding the fact that your real self is this wounded little kid, and they got to come up. And it's a wonderful gift when that wounded little kid comes up, but it feels a little bit like vomiting. You don't want to throw up, and then blah, you throw up, and then you feel better after you had a good old long cry. In today's day and age, one of the best things that you can do for your recovery, you're doing it right now. You're watching a YouTube video, and this is like a free therapy session. Really, I mean, what I'm telling you today, people pay $175 for 50 minutes for in my day-to-day practice. And you can watch it over and over on so many different topics. So, but it really helps immensely when both people know there are no victims and both people understand their issues. Okay, I got abandonment issues, here's my triggers, you've got shame, those are your triggers. So, but getting to that place where you're non-reactive, that takes time. It'd be nice if you could just go in and talk about your feelings and not react, and recognize your partner's wounded little kid and show empathy toward them. But it takes time of doing work on yourself in this process of couples therapy, group therapy, reading, crying, getting in touch if you're a codependent with the fire in your belly. One of the pictures I have of codependency is a woman with blue paint on her face like Braveheart, because she's getting in touch with herself and her voice and her power. So if this is you, if you're part of a couple and I'm describing, one of them has abandonment real bad, one of them has shame, you might both have both, but one majors in abandonment and one majors in shame, you need help. You're not going to be able to do this on your own. Sometimes I'll have people call me and say, I want to come in, and then they'll call me a week or two later and say, we're going to try it on our own. Yeah, good luck with that. It ain't going to happen. It ain't going to happen well. There are going to be a lot of gas cans and a lot of fires. You absolutely positively need all the coaching, all the insight, all the safety that you can get. So really, honestly, the first thing you should do is I've got books on abandonment and shame, and they talk all about this, and I put them in a bundle. You can get it for $25, and you can get everything I know about abandonment, everything I know about shame for $25. And I'll put the link on the video. But you just come to our website, familytreecounseling.com, and you can find how to get those books. and just feast on them, just feed on them, and change how you think. Stephen Covey said that if you want to change somebody quickly, change how they think, change their paradigm. So the second thing you could do is either contact somebody in my practice, and all of our therapists are on familytree.com. At the top it'll say associates, and I don't mind if you contact them and not me. I tend to be more expensive. Or you can email me at familytreecounseling excuse me, at juno.com. And this is anywhere in the English-speaking world where you have decent Wi-Fi, because we can do a Skype session and it'll turn out just almost as good as if you walked in our office. So what therapy offers is insight, accountability, perspective, and it creates a safe environment where we can diffuse the ugliness and make your relationship over time more functional and less painful. So it's not going to be bliss. I tell people what we're looking for is something that's workable, that has more windows of heaven than it has windows of hell. And if you've got abandonment and shame, that's about as good as it's going to get, and that's pretty good. It works, and there's more windows of heaven than there are windows of hell. So thank you for watching today. Join our channel, Family Tree Counseling, and visit our website, familytreecounseling.com. Get those books. They will help you. They're filled with all kinds of links to videos and links to other things that will aid in your learning, and they will change your life. So thank you for watching today, and I hope you put those gas cans down and learn how to detach and learn how to hear each other and truly love each other, because being a couple is the best way to heal your wounds from your childhood. So God bless.